This content is for educational and informational purposes only and is not medical advice, a diagnosis, or treatment.
Welcome to Let's Talk Holistic Hope. I'm your host, Rachelle Wilson, a naturopath and wellness expert. And on this show, we get to the root of chronic illness and nagging symptoms with an enlightening mix of functional medicine, biblical wisdom, and straight-up common sense. Each week, I'll break down the mystery of your fatigue, brain fog, gut drama, weight gain, and hormone chaos, and show you simple ways to heal in body, mind, and spirit. Because God didn't design you to live stuck in survival mode. Grab your lemon water, friend. Let's get into today's episode. Have you ever had that moment where your brain just freezes? You walk into a room and just suddenly stop. You're standing there thinking, why did I come in here? So you walk back out of the room, and halfway down the hallway, it hits you. Oh yeah, that's why. So you turn around, walk back into the room, and forget again. Now you're just standing there looking around like the answer might be hiding somewhere in the furniture. A lot of people laugh about moments like that, but lately I've been hearing something interesting from people in my clinic. People will say, my brain just doesn't feel as clear as it used to. If you felt that way, you're definitely not the only one. Welcome to Let's Talk Holistic Hope. I'm Dr. Rachelle Wilson, a naturopath who spends a lot of time helping people figure out what their symptoms might be trying to communicate about their health. Around here, we talk about how the body, mind, and spirit are connected, and why a lot of the things that people experience physically start making more sense once you understand what your body has been dealing with. Your body is always communicating. Sometimes we just need to slow down enough to understand what it's really saying. And today, we're talking about something a lot of people are struggling with right now: brain fog. Now, before we go into this, though, let me say something really quickly because I know where some people's minds go when they hear a conversation like this. If you've walked into a room and forgotten why you went in there, it doesn't mean you need to start labeling your coffee mug so you remember where you left it. When most people say they have brain fog, they're not talking about dementia or Alzheimer's. That's a completely different situation. What people are usually describing is something much more common. It's that strange feeling where your brain just doesn't seem as sharp as it used to. You're still thinking and you're still functioning, but your mind feels a little slower, almost like it's trying to wake up, but nobody told it the meeting already started. Most of the time, that isn't a disease at all. A lot of the time, it simply means your brain has been trying to keep up with a life that has gotten really, really full. Sometimes it's just simple overwhelm. This is something I explain to people in my clinic all the time. I'll tell them to imagine their brain like a computer. If you've ever had way too many tabs open on your computer, like me, you know exactly what happens. Everything technically still works, but it starts slowing down because the computer is trying to run a bunch of things at the same time. Your brain can feel very similar when life gets busy. Work is happening, family life is happening, and your phone is buzzing, and you're trying to remember 3 different things you forgot yesterday while also solving tomorrow's problems. And after a while, it starts to feel like there are 20 tabs open in your mind all at once. Nothing is actually broken. Your brain is just trying to keep up with everything that you've got running. And when that happens, thinking can start to feel a little like buffering. Part of the reason that happens is because your brain is actually a pretty energy-hungry little organ. It might not look very big compared to the rest of your body, but it's constantly working behind the scenes. Your brain is helping you make decisions and solve problems, remember things, and pay attention to conversations, and somehow keep track of everything that's going on around you all day long. So when your body has been under pressure for a while, maybe you haven't been sleeping well, maybe stress has been running high, or maybe your body has been dealing with inflammation or other imbalances, then your brain often feels it pretty quickly. That's why brain fog can show up during seasons of life when you're simply stretched thin. Your brain is still working. It's just working in a system that hasn't had as much recovery as it needs. Something else that people are often surprised to learn is how much your brain pays attention to what's happening in your gut. Most of us grew up thinking those two things were completely separate. Your brain does the thinking, your stomach handles food, and that's about it. But your body doesn't really work in neat little compartments like that. Your brain and your gut are actually in constant communication. There's a nerve that runs between the two called the vagus nerve, and it's basically sending messages back and forth all day long, kind of like a superhighway. So when your gut isn't very happy, your brain usually knows about it. I'll sometimes joke with people in my clinic that your gut and your brain are kind of like roommates or an old married couple. If one of them is having a rough day, you better believe the other one usually feels it too. And that's why brain fog sometimes shows up at the same time people are dealing with digestive issues, inflammation, or food sensitivities. Your brain is responding to what's happening in the rest of your body. And your gut isn't the only place this connection shows up. I see it pretty often with the thyroid too. Now, the thyroid is this small little gland in your neck that most people never really even think about until it starts acting up. But one of its biggest jobs is helping control how much energy your cells are producing throughout the entire day. In other words, it helps set the pace for how fast your system runs. And your brain depends on that energy more than almost anything else in your body. Your brain is constantly doing things in the background, pulling up words, remembering names, solving problems, figuring out where you left your keys, which for some of us happens more often than we'd like to admit. When the thyroid function slows down just a little, sometimes what people notice first isn't the classic symptoms you hear about. What they notice is that their brain just feels slower. You're talking. Everything's going great. And suddenly, your brain just pauses for a second. So you're standing there thinking, the word is in here somewhere. Give me a second. It's loading. Everyone is politely waiting while your brain spins that little imaginary loading circle. And then a few seconds later, it pops back in and you're like, there it is. When thyroid function slows down a little, that kind of thing can start happening more often. And when that starts happening, people understandably get nervous. They wonder if something's wrong with their memory or if they're just getting older. But a lot of the time, it's not that dramatic. Your brain is just responding to the amount of energy your body has available. And here's where this gets really interesting, because thyroid function is actually very sensitive to things we've already been talking about in past episodes, like stress, inflammation, and gut health. Even the overall load your body has been carrying. So if someone has been under pressure for a long time, or their system has been dealing with inflammation, or if their gut hasn't been working in the way that it should, the thyroid can start easing back on the throttle a little bit, which means sometimes brain fog isn't really about the brain at all. Usually, it's your body quietly saying, hey, we're running a little low on fuel over here. That idea of fuel actually leads into something else that affects the brain clarity in a big way. The main fuel your body uses is glucose, which is just a simple way of saying blood sugar. Now, here's the thing. Your brain loves steady fuel. It doesn't enjoy a roller coaster ride. But the way a lot of people eat today creates exactly that, a blood sugar carnival ride. You eat something really sugary or heavy on refined carbs, your blood sugar shoots up for a little while, and your body is like, wow, that's a lot of fuel at once. Then a couple of hours later, it crashes. Why? Well, because your body sends insulin in like a little SWAT team to tackle all that extra sugar and move it out of the bloodstream. Your organs are delicate, and so your body is trying to protect them from too much sugar floating around. And when that drop happens, your brain is sitting there like, excuse me, where did my fuel go? And that's when people start noticing things like brain fog, irritability, shakiness, or suddenly craving something sweet again just to get their energy back up. A lot of people have experienced that moment where they're perfectly fine, and then suddenly they're standing in the kitchen thinking, if I don't eat something right now, I might turn into a completely different person. That's often blood sugar talking. And there's another piece of this complicated puzzle that people don't always connect to brain fog at first, and that's inflammation. Now, that word sounds very medical, but all it really means is that the immune system has been busy fighting something in the background. Most people hear the word inflammation and immediately think about sore joints or swelling. But inflammation can affect the brain too. Your body is actually very sensitive to what's happening in the rest of your body, especially when the immune system has been dealing with something for a long time. What is that something? Well, maybe it's gut imbalance or ongoing stress. Maybe it's food sensitivities or even old viruses hanging around. Whatever the source is, when the immune system stays activated for a while, it releases chemical signals. And those immune signals don't just stay in one place. They circulate, and eventually some of those signals reach the brain. And when that happens, the brain doesn't necessarily stop working. It just doesn't feel as sharp. Like suddenly you're doing things like opening the refrigerator and just standing there for a second. And what's interesting is that when the inflammation starts calming down, and when sleep improves, when gut health gets better, and when the overall load on the body starts easing, people often notice something encouraging. Their thinking clears up, and they feel mentally lighter again, which actually tells us something really important. The brain usually isn't the problem. It's simply reacting to what the rest of the body has been dealing with. So at this point, people usually ask me a pretty practical question. They'll say, okay, if this is what's going on, how do I get my brain back? And the encouraging part is that the brain usually clears up when the body finally gets the chance to recover. So I see this happen all the time. Someone starts sleeping better for a few weeks, or the stress in their life eases up a little, or their gut begins healing, and they'll come back to me and they'll say something like, I didn't really realize how foggy my thinking had been until it started clearing up. It's almost like someone slowly cleaned a smudged window. The world didn't change. Their intelligence didn't suddenly just increase. Their brain just started working the way it was designed to again. That's the hopeful part of this conversation. Most of the time, brain fog isn't permanent. It's your body asking for recovery. And when your body finally gets that recovery, clarity often follows. The good news is that helping your brain clear up usually doesn't start with anything complicated. Most of the time, it starts with giving your body the basic things it runs best on. For example, sleep is a big one. Your brain does a lot of its repair work while you're asleep. That's when it clears waste and it resets certain brain chemicals. And basically, it just tidies up everything that happened during the day. So one of the simplest ways to start helping your brain is protecting that sleep window. That means going to bed earlier and actually giving your brain the 7 or 8 hours that it needs to do the work it was designed to do, instead of running on 5 hours and a prayer. Another place you can start is the gut. And this is a big one. And I know we've already talked about this because we've already established that your gut and your brain are constantly talking to each other. But also inside your gut lives your microbiome. Trillions of little bacteria that help regulate inflammation. They help produce certain brain chemicals and send signals up to the brain all day long. So when that microbiome gets out of balance, the brain can feel it. That's one of the reasons things like real food, fiber, fermented foods, and taking care of your digestion can actually make a difference in how clear your mind feels. You're not just feeding your stomach. You have to remember you're feeding the system that's talking to your brain. Then there's stress. Your body thinks more clearly when your nervous system feels safe. So simple things like getting outside for a walk, slowing your breathing for a few minutes, spending time in prayer, or putting the phone down earlier in the evening can actually tell your nervous system that it's okay to relax. Even your thyroid and energy systems respond to basic support. Good nutrition, minerals, sunlight, movement, things that help your cells actually produce energy again. None of these things are really complicated. But when your body starts getting the things that it was designed to run on, healing starts to happen. There's also a spiritual side to this conversation that I think is one of the most important points to talk about, because the Bible actually speaks quite a bit about the condition of our minds. In Romans 12:2, it says, "We're transformed by the renewing of our minds." And in Philippians 4:8, it even talks about what we allow our minds to focus on, things that are true, good, and life-giving. Isaiah 26:3 says, "God keeps in perfect peace the person whose mind is stayed on him." And in 2 Timothy 1:7, we're reminded that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and a sound mind. That phrase always stands out to me, a sound mind, because it tells us something about God's design for us. The human mind wasn't created to live under constant pressure, negativity, and stress. And interestingly, modern neuroscience is also starting to show the same thing. Inside the brain, nerve cells have these tiny branching connections that reach out and communicate with other cells. You can almost picture them like little trees. When a person lives in constant stress or fear for long periods of time, those branches actually start shrinking back. The brain begins conserving energy and pulling those connections inward. But when the mind experiences peace, safety, and hope again, those connections can start growing outward again. In other words, the environment your mind lives in matters. That's why God's Word puts such a strong emphasis on guarding the mind, renewing the mind, and bringing our worries to God. It doesn't just help spiritually. It helps the brain function the way it was designed to. Before we finish today, I want to give you a quick preview of what we will be talking about next week. Get ready, because we're going to be talking about something that affects energy, brain clarity, mood, and even cravings. And most people just don't realize how much influence it has on how they feel during the day. Your blood sugar. Now, when people hear that phrase, they usually think about diabetes, but blood sugar actually affects everyone. It's one of the biggest reasons people experience those moments where their energy suddenly crashes in the afternoon, when they feel shaky or irritable if they haven't eaten, or when they suddenly find themselves standing in the kitchen wondering why they want something sweet. Your brain runs on a steady supply of fuel, and when that fuel starts swinging up and down all day long, it can affect how clearly you think, even how stable your mood feels, and how much energy you have to get through the day. So mark your calendar, because next week we're going to unpack what's really happening inside the body when blood sugar starts bouncing around, and what you can do to help your body stay more stable throughout the day. So let's take a quick pause together and pray. God, you see the person listening right now. You see the pace that their life has been moving, and the things that they've been carrying, the thoughts that they've been filling their mind day after day. You know the places where they feel mentally exhausted, the places where their thoughts feel scattered, and the moments where they've wondered why their mind just doesn't feel as clear as it used to. Lord, I ask that you bring peace to their mind. Where there has been pressure, bring calm. Where there has been confusion, bring clarity. And where their body has been worn down, Lord, bring restoration. Help them begin to notice the signals their body has been sending instead of feeling discouraged by them. Give them wisdom about what needs attention, what needs healing, and what they can release into your hands. And most of all, remind them that they are not alone in carrying the weight of their life. You are with them. You care about their health. You care about their thoughts and the peace of their mind. Guide them back into the rhythm of rest, clarity, and renewal that you designed them to live in. In the mighty name of King Jesus, amen. Before you move on with your day, take a moment and ask God something simple. Just ask, Lord, what might my body be trying to show me right now? And then listen. Sometimes the beginning of healing starts with paying attention. If this conversation encouraged you today, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. And if someone came to mind while you were listening, someone who's been feeling mentally overwhelmed or foggy lately, consider sharing this episode with them. Sometimes just hearing what they're experiencing actually makes sense can be really encouraging. You can also connect with me online at www.therenewedhope.com or send me an email at letstalk@theholistichopepodcast.com. I always enjoy hearing from listeners and learning what topics would be most helpful for you. You'll also find other ways to stay connected with me in the show notes. Remember, the body isn't failing you. It's trying to get your attention. Until next time, friends, keep choosing hope, keep trusting Jesus, and keep healing from the inside out. Ooh, that was good. Thanks for hanging with me today. If this episode brought you clarity or hope, would you do me a quick favor? Take 30 seconds to share it with a friend. Leave a 5-star rating or write a short review. It helps this show reach more people who need real answers too. Want to keep the conversation going? Come hang out with me on Facebook at Renewed Hope Holistic Health. The link's in the show notes. Or better yet, let's talk. Book a free 15-minute discovery call and let's see how I can support your health journey, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. Until next time, keep your faith strong, your gut happy, and your hope holistic.